Hi, this is Andrew bringing you the rest of the Keyforge Age of Ascension spoilers through last month. There's a few more since then, but I wanted to finish burning through these slides that I set up for the ones that were out through March. My brother-in-law Mark and I already did a video where we went through 2 houses, and I'm hoping to burn through the rest here. I'll put a link to that video in the description if you want to see the see Brobnar and Dis. And then this video, I'm hoping to burn through the rest pretty quickly. So with that said, let's jump into it. So to start off with, we'll touch on Archimedes. Archimedes is, I'm going to actually move myself over to hide that little, well, it doesn't hide so easy. Okay, there we go. So Archimedes is a cyborg beast in Logos that is 2 power and elusive, and gives each of his neighbors destroyed archive this creature. So this essentially has a similar effect to Biomatrix Backup, but it's each of its neighbors, which is pretty cool. If you can, keep this alive while you're using those other creatures, you can keep them around. That's pretty sweet. And it seems like this would, of course, be like a force multiplier on any good cards, but especially on cards that have play effects. You burn them and then you get them in your archives, you get to use them again. That's pretty cool. Okay, so next up we have Binate Rupture, and this is one of the cards that has alpha, which is one of the new keywords. And so that means you can only play it at the very beginning of your turn, and each player gains amber equal to the amber in their pool. Their amber is doubled. So seems interesting. And that alpha is an important restriction because it means that you can't do a lot to change the state. This really depends on you being in a state at the beginning of the turn where you're going to want to do this. Next up we have Igor, 2 power cyborg creature. You play it, you look at the top 3 cards of your deck, you add 1 to your hand, and you discard the others. So good way to burn through a deck. Seems solid. Any cards like that give me more choice, I'm really happy about. Standardized testing, it's an action. When you play it, you destroy each creature with the lowest power and each creature with the highest power. So probably a lot of 1s and 2s, maybe 3's going to die. A lot of 5, 6, and above going to die, depending on board state. Eureka gains you an amber. It has alpha, and when you play it, you gain 2 amber. You archive 2 random cards from your hand. That's interesting. Now, something that I became very aware of recently playing a deck with a fair game in it is if you can control what's in your hand, then these things that kind of depend on randomness and what's in your hand become a lot less random. But because this has alpha, you don't have the opportunity to do that. You're going to have to play it and then hope you archive the right things. So not sure how I feel about that, but it's probably strong. It's probably the right move to play it. I just wish it was just 2 cards. But it seems fine. It seems good. And it's definitely like a good play if you have that and a bunch of other non-Logos cards. Okay. Next up is that's it for Logos. That's all that. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if there's any Logos in the most recent dump. I'm not sure, but that's all that we had through March. So next we're into Mars. This is an ugly looking thing. If you've ever been fishing, you've seen something not too dissimilar from this. But this is a collector worm. It is 2 power and 5 armor, and that's interesting. Because it means you aren't going to do a lot of killing with it, but you can probably survive a lot. And when it fights, you archive the creature that it fights, and if that creature leaves your archives, put it in its owner's hand instead, of course. yeah, because of that 5 armor, there's a good chance that works pretty consistently. This is less, I guess, abusive than Zizix or than Uxlix Zookeeper because you aren't getting an amber by reaping also, and you do have to, and you do have to target something. You do have to fight something. So certain things like this, you fight an Earthshaker, you can't archive that, for example. So a little less crazy than Zookeeper, but strong in different ways because this is harder, definitely harder to wipe off with just direct damage, right? You have to do a lot of direct damage before this thing falls off the board. Next up, we have Mars First, which is an action that gains you an amber when you play it, and then you ready and use a friendly Mars creature. So, man, that's a better inspiration, and I guess, man, how is this not just way better? Oh, because it says Mars, so it is specific. You have to use it with a Mars creature. Have to see how much of the powerful Mars Reap effects stick around in this set. That'll be an interesting and important thing to find out, I think, because this could just be pretty crazy. Mars needs amber, gain an amber, and each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures 1 from their own side. Whew. Now this is not as terrible as Hypnotic Command, because this depends on the enemy having damaged creatures, but potentially you could have a bunch of those out there. They're each going to steal from their own side. They're captured from their own side. That's pretty crazy. I think this is a play on Mars Needs Mothers, which is a kids movie I didn't see, but I think that's probably what it's referencing. Next up, we have Xanthix Harvester. It's 3 power, and it can't be used while it has a non-Mars neighbor. So you really have to organize that. This is where deploy could come in nicely if your opponent gets you in a situation where you have one of your other houses next to this and there's no flank on that side. Well, you'll never be able to use it again unless you have like a Mars creature with deploy that you can plop in between. So, but it has that reap gain 1. That's great. Getting 2 amber is strong. So potential here. I'm interested to see what support it has. Next up, we have Zizix Shockworm, 3 power, 1 armor Martian soldier. After an enemy creature reaps, stun it. That is crazy. I mean, it seems to me like if this thing is on the board, your enemy creatures are probably going to be fighting, not reaping. This would be pretty high priority to get off the board. But man, that is just bonkers. That effect after an enemy creature reaps, stun it. Yeah, very important to kill that thing. Next we have Amber Conduction Unit. It's an artifact, and after an enemy creature reaps, if it is the first time a creature is reaped this turn, stun it. The first time I saw these cards, I didn't see the enemy qualifier on it. It doesn't even affect your own. That is just crazy. So this is very likely to stun 1 enemy creature per turn. Whew. That's crazy. Nizek Resonator, 2 power for each neighbor it has. Your opponent's keys cost +2. So if you have 2 creatures on the board, this is at least increasing by 2. If your opponent kills the neighbor, they don't have to necessarily kill this. They can kill the neighbor, and they've fixed that problem for temporarily anyway. But this card giving up to +4 cost, that's pretty big. 2 power, 1 armor, so a little bit of staying power there. Could be strong, and you slap it next to something big. That 2 power with an armor is going to make it hard to get rid of. All right, Now we're into Sanctum. So first is Lion Boutram. This is a really cool looking card, and it looks like, it should be one of the horsemen, right? Like, that's interesting. So 4 power, 1 armor, human knight, and it has deploy. So that means you can, play it. When you play it, it can go anywhere on the battle line. It doesn't have to go on a flank. And its neighbors get +2 power, which can be a lot. It seems like there's definitely a little more of a theme in this set of power manipulation. Not that there wasn't any in the last set, but seems to be a lot of it here. And yeah, seems good. Okay, next up we have Ebond, the Armor Smith. 3 power human. Other friendly creatures get +1 armor. So unlike Green Monk, this doesn't affect itself. It only affects other friendly creatures. And you can exhaust it to give other friendly creatures an extra armor for the remainder of the turn. So that's kind of a cool ability. And sometimes that won't matter and you can just reap. But if you're on a turn where that will matter, then go for it, and that can be pretty cool. Albade the Grim, 4 power, 1 armor. When you play it, you capture 3, and then when he reaps, you discard 1 from him. So if you can keep him alive long enough, that amber that he's captured is getting lost every time he reaps. That's pretty cool. And it almost seems like there's just a little bit of, like, I don't know, is he messing around with this stuff there? That's, Alright, we have Chalet, not sure how to say that, the Safeguard, who's a human knight with 4 power and 2 armor. And Chalet has deploy, so can enter anywhere, and taunt. So fairly simple in that regard. It's just a big creature, but you can plop it down in the middle of stuff. So you don't necessarily have to worry quite as much about the order in which you get things on the board. Next up we have Smite, which is an action. When you play it, you ready and fight with a friendly creature, and you deal 2 damage to the attacked creature's neighbors. So similar effect to like Lava Ball, except instead of dealing that 4 damage, you have a creature attacking and it's doing 2 splash. That's pretty cool. The Grey Rider, very clearly a Gandalf reference here. And the Grey Rider is a human monk with deploy, and when the Grey Rider is played or fights or reaps, you may ready and fight with a neighboring creature. That is pretty strong. Now it doesn't have elusive or any armor, so good luck keeping this thing on the board, but it is a cool effect. And you get it at least at play, so that's pretty cool. Oops. We have Barrister Joya, who is 5 power and 1 armor, and enemy creatures cannot reap. Wow, that control, that's crazy. Yeah, there are definitely situations where this can be pretty powerful. Yeah, just have to keep her alive, but she is 5 power with 1 armor, so you have a leg up there. Alright, next we're into Shadows. First one here is Furtive Investors. Gains you an amber. It's an action that gains you an amber, and when you play it, if your opponent has more amber than you, you gain 1 amber for each key your opponent has forged. Definitely less upside here than with Bait and Switch or Too Much to Protect or a lot of the other Shadows cards we've seen. But could be worth up to 3 amber, which is not bad in Shadows. Lamindra is an elf thief with 1 power who has deploy and elusive, and she gives her neighbors elusive. So that could be cool. That could be pretty cool. Imagining dropping her on the board next to something big with taunt, and suddenly, it becomes just really hard to deal with them. We have Life for a Life, which is an action that gains you an amber, and then you sacrifice a creature to deal 6 damage to a creature. So really similar to Pawn Sacrifice here, except that you're doing the full 6 to a single creature instead of it being split between 2. So, seems fair. It's a fair trade, boss. I don't mind. What's that? Oh yeah, the Lord Farquaad quote from Shrek. Some of you may die, but that is a sacrifice that I am willing to make. Next we have Ronnie Wristclocks, who is 2 power elf thief, and when you play Ronnie, you steal 1, and if your opponent has 7 or more, you steal 2 instead. That's interesting. I feel like that could have been worded well. FFG doesn't care what I think about wording, but I feel like that could have been worded a little more clearly, like steal 1 if your opponent has 6 or more, steal 1 more. Then it'd be pretty clear you're doing them in order. If your opponent has 7 or more after the steal 1 makes it a little unclear. I think the intention here is when you play the card, see if your opponent has 7 or more, and if they do, steal 2, otherwise steal 1. Yeah. Anyway, it's fine. And then, yeah, so a potentially, it's better than Urchin, right? Except that he's not elusive, but we can forgive him for that, for sure, and a common, so that could be pretty cool. Next we have Sucker Punch, which gains you an amber. It's an action that gains you an amber, and it's alpha, so you have to play it at the beginning of your play phase, and when you play it, you deal 2 damage to an enemy creature, and if that creature is destroyed by the effect, then you archive Sucker Punch. So you get to use it again next turn, or some other turn in the future. That could be pretty cool. It'd be kind of sad to have 2 of these, because you just don't. There's no way you're going to get to use both because of the alpha, but could definitely be good with just the 1. We have Swindle, which is an action that also has alpha. You can only play it before doing anything else. Has Omega also. So basically, this thing, you play it. You can't have done anything before you play it, and as soon as you play it, your turn is over. So, or that phase is over. So, this is the only thing you're going to play. You aren't going to get to use anything else. And the effect is you steal 3. So that's strong, but that's all you get to do that turn. It's even more limiting than Treasure Map, because Treasure Map, at least you could use things. It can only be it has to be the only card you play to get the boost, the total of 4. But here, yeah, this is it. You can't even use stuff. So, interesting. But again, potentially strong. Okay, next up we have Throwing Stars, which is an action that when you play it, you deal 1 damage to up to 3 creatures, and you gain 1 amber for each creature destroyed this way. So, this is like an action that's like using using Secret Needle 3 times, but it has to be 3 different creatures. So, seems a little iffy. It's not super often that there's 3 creatures within 1 of dying. It's often 1, but There's a good chance you'll end up needing to use it against your own. But yeah, definitely some potential there. Whistling Darts is an action that gains you an amber, and you deal 1 damage to each enemy creature. So if you have Whistling Darts with the not Swindle, with the Throwing Stars, maybe you have a good combo there on a lot of 2-creature stuff. Just depends, but yeah, 1 damage to each creature, so just a smaller version of Poison Wave, basically. Oh, but it's only to enemy creatures. It doesn't affect your own, so that's pretty cool. Next we have Yancy Gang, and Yancy Gang is a 5-power elf thief that has action Steal 1, so similar to Naughty, but no elusive, and it's 5 power instead, which I guess puts elusive at a value of 3 power, which seems about right. And then we have Night Forge, which so far is the only Forge out of step card that I've seen from the new, in the new cards. Night Forge gains you an amber, and if so, it's an action, gains you an amber, and if you have not forged a key this turn, you may forge a key at +4 current cost. So can't use this on a turn you forged any other way. But if you combine this with like a bait and switch, for example, or Too Much to Protect, you swing the amber and then you use this. And if you're in one of those situations where there's a lot of amber swing back and forth, you don't really mind losing the 4. So it can be pretty good, and it gains you an amber before. So it's more like +3 current cost. Yeah. Then we have Heist Knight, which is an action that has alpha, so it has to be the first thing you do. And when you play it, you steal 1 for each friendly thief creature. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Especially because sometimes the thieves tend to have a little bit of staying power because of elusive. So yeah, pretty cool. All right. And then lastly, we're into Untamed territory. So this is a cute card. Darna, she's an elf witch. Is this the first elf we've seen in Untamed? I'm not sure about that. But definitely elves are not, confined to shadows. But she's 2 power, and here she is just stitching up this poor bear. I don't know if that's an ancient bear or some other kind of bear, but it looks sad, and she's stitching it up. And when she's played, you gain 1 amber for each damaged friendly creature. And when she reaps, you heal 2 damage from a friendly creature. So definitely wants you to have some damage on your creatures, and then she'll help with it. So pretty cool. Then we have Dusk Witch, which is a 1 power human witch with Omega, so you have to play her at the very end of your turn. She has elusive, so has a chance of sticking around, and your creature's interplay ready. And that Omega is important there because if you could drop her at the beginning of your turn and then drop, it's essentially like a speed sigil for all your creatures, which is just insane. If you could reliably drop her at the beginning of a turn and then drop a bunch of other creatures, that would be really powerful. It's still quite powerful if you can manage to keep her on the board. But at least this way your opponent has some opportunity to try to do something about this crazy thing that's about to happen to them. So I'm excited about this. I think this could lead to just some really crazy plays. And I'm imagining keeping this around and then dropping like a Witch of the Eye, Big Twig, cards like that, or it could be that you pick a different house the next turn, and you there's just a lot of cool possibilities. So yeah, this is great. Imagine that with Mars, is just be crazy. Okay, next we have Fang House, which is a 3-power beast. Looks really terrifying. Like a cross between a snake and a centipede, but much bigger. And Fang House, yeah, 3-power and has Assault 3 and Hazardous 3. So just, yeah, don't don't mess. And that Assault 3 is pretty cool because it means that if you attack things even with elusive, uh, the damage will be done, uh, before the elusive has a chance to kick in. So you can kill elusive stuff with it, and also because it's done the before the fight, um, it the damage, there won't be damage dealt back to Fang House if the creature is killed during that. So pretty cool. Yeah, good stuff. Seems strong. Then we have Grove Keeper, who's 3-power, and at the end of your turn, you give each neighboring creature a +1 counter. So if you can keep this on the board, your creatures that are next to it are just going to get bigger and bigger. That's pretty cool at the end of every turn. So pretty nice. Yeah. And then we have Nox. Nox is a 3-power beast who gets 3 power for each neighbor it has. So it's at least 3 power. If it's not the only creature on the board, it's at least 6 power. And if it's nestled in between 2 other things, then it's 9 power, which is large. And apparently it is a hypnopotamus. It's an interesting species there. Marmo Swarm is a 2-power beast that gets +1 power for each amber in your pool. So the more amber you have, the bigger Marmo Swarm is. You could potentially have a funny situation where you forge, and as you forge, the Marmo Swarm dies, right? Because your amber pool drops, and now the damage gets to it. So definitely possibility for that. Persistence hunting is different from cooperative hunting. So in the first set, we had cooperative hunting, which you play, you deal 1 damage for each creature that you have on the board. In this one, you get an amber, and then you choose a house, and you exhaust each enemy creature of the chosen house, which can be pretty strong. This is not as good as Blinding Light, where you get to stun them, but it can still be pretty good to exhaust their creatures. Song of Spring gains you an amber. It's an action, and then you shuffle any number of friendly untamed creatures from your hand, discard pile, or battle line back into your deck. So get the good ones in. Don't have to, if there's ones you don't really want to see again, you don't have to. Yeah, seems potentially pretty good, especially if you have, if you have stuff with good play effects like Schulers and Urchins and stuff like that. Tantadlin is a 9-power creature that is a tree, and Tantadlin only deals 2 damage when fighting. So, not great at fighting, but it can soak up a lot of damage, and when Tantadlin fights and survives, you discard a random card from your opponent's archives. That's pretty strong, potentially. If they have archives, those are probably high value cards and really useful to discard, and you're not, I think I've said before, I have mixed feelings about cards like Mind Barb and Subtle Maul. I think once you're discarding 2 cards from your opponent's hand in the same turn, it gets pretty valuable, but otherwise it's, there's a good likelihood that you're going to end up discarding a card they didn't really want to play anyway. You're just helping them cycle faster. But in this case, we, if you get to discard from archives, that's not helping them cycle faster. And again, it's probably a high value thing because they chose to stash it there. They're Everywhere is an action that gains you an amber, and you deal 2 damage to each enemy flank creature and 1 damage to each enemy creature that's not on a flank. And man, this is these poor Sanctum guys and gals are here just surrounded by looks like a lot of Niffle stuff, having a bad time. Panpaka Anga is one of the 2 cards that Richard Garfield talked about naming after his twin sons. So that's kind of a cool feature here, and there's these 2 cards that are going to go together. So I don't know if that means that they are paired algorithmically, but they just are thematically tied together. So yeah, it's not clear to me that they're necessarily going to always show up together. But Panpaka Anga is a 5-power creature. It's a beast, and creatures to the right of it in the battle line get +2 power. So that's pretty cool. If you had 2 of these and you stick them on the left, then the rightmost one will be 7 power, and everything to the right of that will be +4. So that can be pretty crazy. And then we have Panpaka Jaga, which is 3 power and has Skirmish, and creatures to the left of it gain Skirmish. Now, you can imagine if you have a board with just the 2 of these and they're set up correctly so that Jaga is on the right and Anga is on the left, then they're both 5 power with Skirmish. If you have them, on either flank aligned like that, then everything in between them gets Skirmish and +2. So that's pretty cool. Seems pretty good. Way of the Porcupine is a little more comical than Wolf or Bear, but Way of the Porcupine gives a creature Hazardous 3. So that seems good. Gains you an amber. Hazardous 3 on something with elusive maybe to just be really good because it means that they have to have 2 things that can not only damage it but can survive that hazardous 3. So pretty cool. A defensive upgrade. Next we have Roxador, which looks really cool, and it is like looks like an Oliphant actually from Tolkien maybe. But anyway, it's 4 power. It's a beast, and it has Skirmish, but it only deals 2 when fighting. But it stuns the attacked creature. And that combined with the Skirmish is pretty good, right? Because you're gonna be able to plink it for 2 damage, which isn't that great, but you're gonna stun it, and Roxador isn't gonna take any damage. So it seems pretty good. Then we have Shard of Life, which is an artifact. It's a shard, and this seems to be like a new theme, I guess, or set of cards that will interrelate to each other. I'm guessing there will be shards in the different houses, maybe 1 per house or something like that. And anyway, and they'll do different things. That's my guess at how this is going to work. But this one, when you exhaust it, you shuffle a card from your discard pile into your deck for each friendly shard. And if you can imagine, if you had like three shards on the table, getting to exhaust and shuffle 3 cards from a discard pile into your deck, that would be a really strong effect. So I'm guessing, and this isn't going to be like super. I doubt it. I'm not guessing that there's going to be any guarantee that you get 2 shards if you have 1. it is rare, um, and just that effect alone, doing one is good. Doing two is really good. So, uh, you know, like I said, I don't like it's not bad if you just get one of these in a deck and no other shards at all. You're fine. But anyway, seems good, and I'm excited about them exploring thematic elements like that. Next, we have Bumblebird, which is a 1-power creature. It's a beast and an insect. It has alpha, so you have to play it at the start of your turn, and when you play it, you put 2+1 power counters on each other friendly untamed creature. The alpha is important because this means you have to put these creatures out before the turn on which you play Bumblebird. You can't on the same turn play things and then play Bumblebird, but still seems good. You hopefully have some untamed creatures out when you play it. And then last one, we have Niflgrounds, which is an artifact that gains you an amber when you play it, and it exhausts to choose a creature, and for the remainder of the turn, that creature loses taunt and elusive. This fits with the whole Niffle thing. I think we only have 2 Niffle creatures that I've seen, and one of them is the Niffle Ape, which ignores taunt and elusive, so makes sense. Obviously, if there's an elusive creature next to a creature with taunt, you can only use this on one of them, so maybe you decide what you want to do, but if you use this on the elusive creature, the creature with taunt still has taunt. So it's just important to be aware. Okay, and that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I want to do kind of a follow-up at some point where we talk through some of the general themes that we're seeing emerge in the houses in this new set, or just new elements like the shards. And I'm definitely going to be doing a follow-up on some of the latest spoiled cards. So look forward to that. And in other news, I'm kind of excited. I on Monday for the first time got a deck to Power 2 at a Chainbound event. So that was really fun to do. It was going in, had 6 chains, and I went 3-1 in a field of 10 people, gaining 3 more chains up to 9, which is enough to get you 2 power. And the chain-bound system really works nicely. I felt like at 6, there were decks that it would have just completely blown away with no chains, and those decks had a chance. The deck I lost to was pretty good. It had a double Ember Imp, Restringantus, Schuler, Charette combo, along with a bunch of early archive effects, 2 copies of Arise and 2 copies of Reverse Time. So my opponent ended up doing a bunch of early archives, dumping all those cards on the board in a turn, keeping me off of Brobnar. I had to find ways to kill all this stuff, which I did. I killed it all. Played Arise. Put everything back out again. I killed it all. He played Arise. Put everything back out again. I killed it all. He played Reverse Time. He managed to play Reverse Time while the stuff was on the board. So that then, after I killed it all, he played Arise again, dumped it all on the board. I killed it all. He played Arise again, dumped it all on the board. And I did get 1 key forged, but man, that was just brutal to work through. So anyway, but other than that, I won the other 3 games and managed to get to 2 power. That was fun. I really think the chainbound system works well. And I'm excited to keep showing up to these events and bring new things, see the new things others bring. It really does a good job of pushing you in that regard. So anyway, but yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did enjoy it, please give me a like, and if you want to see more stuff like this, then go ahead and subscribe, and I'll be doing more in the future. Thanks, and have a good day.